At a bustling work conference in a distant city, Emma felt herself drifting through the motions, each seminar blending into the next under the harsh lights of the convention centre. The familiar fatigue that comes with professional gatherings was weighing on her, leaving her feeling disconnected not just from the content of the workshops, but also from the life she had left behind at home, with Daniel, her husband. Emma's world, usually so carefully compartmentalized into work and home, personal and professional, unexpectedly collided when she saw Alex. There he was, unexpectedly part of the crowd, as if he had stepped out of a forgotten chapter of her past. Alex, her college boyfriend, whose memories were tucked away in a part of her heart she seldom visited, a part masked by years of moving on and growing up. The shock of seeing Alex after all these years sent a jolt through her. His familiar smile and the way his eyes lit up upon seeing her sparked a flood of nostalgia. They greeted each other tentatively at first, but soon old jokes, shared memories, and updates about mutual friends filled the space between them. Each laugh and reminiscence pulled Emma further away from her present realities, enveloping her in a warm, familiar comfort she hadn't realized she missed. As they talked, Alex shared stories of his adventures abroad and his current ventures, which were exciting and worlds apart from the stability and routine that characterized Emma's life with Daniel. Listening to Alex, Emma found herself drawn into the what-ifs of a life not chosen, a life that promised excitement and spontaneity, the very things that had first attracted her to Alex years ago. Meanwhile, Emma talked about her achievements and the life she had built. Yet, as she spoke, she felt a pang of something she couldn't quite place. Was it regret? Longing? She was proud of her life, of her marriage, but Alex's sudden appearance had stirred a restlessness within her, revealing fissures in her contentment that she hadn't acknowledged before. The connection between Emma and Alex was undeniable. It was as if no time had passed, yet everything had changed. They moved through the conference together, sharing meals and coffee breaks, the familiarity of their past making it easy to forget the ring on her finger and the husband at home waiting for her. Emma found herself laughing more freely than she had in months, her professional demeanour softened into something more genuine, something distinctly reminiscent of her younger self. With each passing moment, the tension of their rekindled connection grew. Emma was acutely aware of Alex's glances, the casual brushes of his hand and the warmth of his smile. She found herself anticipating their meetings throughout the day, looking forward to the next conversation, the next shared smile. It was thrilling and deeply unsettling. By the time the evening rolled around, Emma and Alex found themselves sitting close together at a dimly lit bar, the noise around them fading into a distant hum. Their conversation had deepened, turning to more personal subjects, decisions, regrets, dreams deferred. Alex's gaze held hers, intense and probing, and she felt herself drawn in, mesmerized by the familiarity and what might have been. In that moment, wrapped in the nostalgia of her first love and the excitement of rediscovery, Emma felt a connection that she hadn't realized she had been missing. But as Alex's hand found hers under the table, the thrill of the forbidden snapped her back to reality. She was a married woman after all, and her husband Daniel wasn't just a part of her life. He was her partner, her chosen companion. Caught between the past and the present, Emma felt a surge of confusion. What was this feeling? Was it a fleeting escape from her routine, or a genuine rediscovery of a lost part of herself? The questions loomed large, unanswered but impossible to ignore, as she navigated the familiar yet foreign terrain of an old flame unexpectedly reignited. Caught up in the whirlwind of renewed feelings and the intense familiarity of Alex's presence, Emma allowed herself to be swept away by the moment, the conference dinner buzzing around them as if in another world. There, amid the clinking of glasses and the soft hum of conversations filling the lavish dining hall, the space between Emma and Alex seemed to diminish with every shared laugh and lingering look. As the evening wore on, the connection they had rediscovered grew only stronger, more insistent. It was as if the years apart had slowly dissolved, leaving behind the raw essence of their past intimacy, now coloured by the experiences and the separate lives they had led. Despite the joy of the reunion, a nagging voice at the back of Emma's mind reminded her of the reality waiting at home, of Daniel, who believed in their love and trusted her completely. The dinner ended with a sense of inevitability, as if Emma and Alex were being pulled by a tide too, strong to resist. They found themselves alone, away from the eyes of other attendees, in a quiet corner of the hotel's lush garden. The night air was cool and fragrant with the scent of blooming flowers, adding to the surreal quality of the evening. Alex's voice was soft as he spoke of the past, of what they had shared and what he had often thought about over the years. Emma listened, her heart a tumult of joy and sorrow, of excitement and guilt. When Alex reached out to tuck a stray lock of hair behind her ear, the gesture so tender and familiar, she felt a shiver run through her. It wasn't just the chill of the night air, it was the realization of what this meant, of where this could lead. His hand lingered near her face, his touch gentle, questioning, as if giving her the choice to step back, to remember who she was, who she had become. But in that moment, Emma's resolve wavered. The loneliness she hadn't admitted even to herself, the longing for a connection she felt had been missing in her life, overwhelmed her. She looked up into Alex's eyes, saw the longing there mirrored her own, and for a fleeting second, she allowed herself to forget the promises she had made, the life she had built with another man. Alex drew her closer, his arms a familiar haven, and she leaned into his embrace, her head resting against his chest, where she could hear the steady beat of his heart. It felt like coming home, a feeling so profoundly comforting and profoundly disturbing all at once. She closed her eyes, lost in the moment, her senses filled with the scent of his cologne, the warmth of his body, the quiet strength of his arms around her. Yet even as she stood there, enveloped in the arms of her first love, the ring on her finger felt heavier, a stark reminder of the reality she was betraying. It was a reality that crashed into her when her phone vibrated in her clutch, a sharp, insistent buzzing that felt like an alarm. Pulling away from Alex, she fumbled for her phone, her heart sinking as she saw Daniel's name flashing on the screen. In that instant, the fantasy shattered. The sound of Daniel's name, the thought of his face, his trust, his love for her, all of it came rushing back, colliding with the present moment in a painful clash of past and present, of what could be and what should be. Emma froze, unable to answer the call, each ring a piercing reminder of the life she was risking for a moment of escape. Alex stood watching, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. He reached out as if to comfort her, but she stepped back, the spell broken, the reality of her actions crashing down around her. The garden, once a secret sanctuary, now felt like an exposed stage where her betrayal was spotlighted, impossible to hide. She needed to make a choice, to confront the consequences of this night, of this moment that had spiraled so far beyond her control. The call went unanswered, but the decision could not be delayed any longer. Emma needed to face the truth of her feelings, the damage of her actions, and the future she truly wanted. Standing in the quiet of the night, the phone continued to vibrate, its persistent buzz a harsh intrusion into the fragile bubble that had enveloped Alex and me. The flashing screen displaying Daniel's name was like a beacon, calling me back to a reality I had momentarily escaped but could no longer ignore. The warmth from Alex's embrace suddenly felt stifling, suffocating, as if each second I remained there, I sank deeper into betrayal. I finally mustered the courage to silence the phone, but the damage was already done. The ringtone echoed in my ears, a piercing reminder of the life and promises I had cast aside for these stolen moments. My heart raced, pummeling against my chest with an intensity that matched the turmoil swirling inside me. The stark contrast between Alex's touch and the digital representation of my husband's call laid bare the duplicity of my actions. Alex, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, withdrew his arms slowly, his touch lingering as if reluctant to let go. His eyes searched mine, looking for an explanation or perhaps reassurance, but what could I possibly say to ease the tension? The silence between us grew, filling the space with unspoken questions and unresolved emotions. In the quiet aftermath, the cool air felt sharper, biting at my skin as the warmth of Alex's body receded. The garden around us, once a secluded haven, now felt exposed and cold, mirroring the isolation I felt within. My mind raced with the implications of the choice I had teetered on making, the life I had risked on a whimsy, spurred by nostalgia and a desperate yearning for connection. The need to make things right, to align my actions with the values I held dear, pressed upon me with urgency. The call from Daniel was a wake-up call in more ways than one. It wasn't just a reminder of my obligations, but a stark prompt that it was time to confront the truths I had been avoiding. How long had I allowed my marriage to languish in silent discontent? How long had I buried my loneliness under the guise of routine and familiarity? The decision to step away from Alex, to end the embrace and the possibility of anything more, was painful, yet clear. I couldn't dismantle my life, disrupt the stability and love built over years with Daniel, for a momentary escape that burned bright but would inevitably fade into regret. The realization that I needed to face my problems, not run from them or mask them with illicit thrill, settled heavy on my shoulders. As I walked away from Alex, each step felt laden with the weight of my near miss. The path back to my hotel room was a walk of contemplation. I thought about Daniel, his kindness, his steadfastness, and how the foundation we had built deserved more than to be shattered under the weight of my confusion and neglect. It deserved effort, communication, and most importantly, honesty. Reaching my room, the solitude was a stark contrast to the earlier warmth of human connection. Here, in the quiet and privacy of my own space, the full magnitude of what could have been lost had room to unfurl. The love and life I shared with Daniel, with all its imperfections and comforts, was not something to be discarded lightly. Resolving to repair the rifts in my marriage became my new resolve. It was a resolve not born out of obligation, but out of a renewed recognition of its value, and the understanding that true fulfillment in any relationship comes from facing challenges head-on, together. The night's events, while a detour on the path of my marriage, were a necessary jolt, an uncomfortable but crucial confrontation with the parts of myself and my life that needed attention. The journey ahead would be one of healing, of rediscovery, and hopefully, of forgiveness. The drive back home seemed endless, each mile stretching before me as I rehearsed the conversation that awaited. My mind was a tumult of regret and resolve, knowing that the words I would soon speak could alter the course of our lives. Arriving home felt both like a relief and a confrontation with the reality I had temporarily fled. The house was quiet when I stepped inside, the familiar surroundings now a backdrop for the confession that hung heavy on my heart. I found Daniel in the living room, his expression tense, an unspoken acknowledgement that my early return was no mere whim. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that precedes a storm, and in his eyes I saw a wariness, a bracing for impact. "I need to talk to you," I began, my voice barely above a whisper, the weight of my words grounding me to the spot. Daniel nodded, his face a mask of calm, but beneath it I could see the edges of hurt, the lines of worry that had deepened since my departure. We sat across from each other, the space between us charged with the unsaid, the room filled with the echo of our shared past. I told him about the conference, about running into Alex. Each word felt like a betrayal, not just of the vows we had shared, but of the trust that had been the bedrock of our marriage. I spoke of the loneliness that had crept into my heart, unnoticed yet pervasive, and how seeing Alex had seemed like a light in that unexpected darkness. I confessed to the feelings that had surged, old embers reignited into a blaze I hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just about him, I admitted, the truth tasting bitter. It was about feeling seen, feeling understood in a way I hadn't in a long time. I paused, the silence stretching, filled with the magnitude of my admission. But it was wrong, and I'm so sorry for the pain I've caused. Daniel listened, his face unreadable, absorbing each word with a stoic stillness that belied the turmoil I knew roiled beneath. When I finished, the room felt colder, as if my words had leached the warmth from it. He sat back, his gaze drifting away before settling back on me. "Why didn't you tell me you were feeling this way?" His voice was soft, not accusatory, but genuinely curious, a plea for understanding. "Why him, Emma? Why now?" His questions pierced me, each one a reminder of the distance that had grown between us, nurtured by silence and missed connections. I struggled to find an answer that could bridge the gulf of hurt, to offer something that might mend the fractures. "I don't know," I said, the honesty in my uncertainty a meagre offering amidst the wreckage. I think I forgot how to ask for what I needed, forgot that I could turn to you. And when he appeared, it was like a part of me woke up without considering the cost. Daniel nodded, his expression softening slightly, a crack in the facade that allowed me to see the hurt boy beneath the composed man. "I wish you had come to me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We could have worked on this together." "I know," I replied, my own voice cracking with the weight of my remorse. "And I wish I had. More than anything, I wish I had chosen us over this fleeting distraction. We talked long into the night, unravelling years of miscommunications and quiet resentments, each revelation a step towards understanding and, hopefully, forgiveness. It was the beginning of a new kind of conversation, one that was fraught with the potential for pain, but also for healing. As dawn broke, the first light filtering through the windows, there was a sense of fragile hope, a belief that perhaps from the ashes of this ordeal, something stronger could be reborn. It was a hope I clung to, a promise I made to myself and to Daniel, that from here on out I would fight for us with the same fervour that I had mistakenly directed elsewhere. It was a vow to rebuild, to restore, and to renew the love that had once been unassailable. And as the sun rose, casting long shadows across the room, I felt for the first time in a long while that it might just be possible. In the light of a new day, the conversation between Emma and Daniel shifted towards healing. They realised that although the night had been one of the hardest in their shared life, it had opened doors to discussions they had long avoided but deeply needed. With a new-found resolve, they agreed to enter counselling, to navigate through their issues with a professional who could guide them without judgment, helping them to understand not only each other's feelings, but their own as well. Sitting together in the quiet of their home, they mapped out what they envisioned for the future of their relationship. Daniel expressed his need for honesty, not just about day-to-day matters, but also about the deeper, more personal feelings and fears. Emma promised transparency, realizing that her silence had been as damaging as her indiscretion. She committed to sharing her feelings more openly, to discussing her loneliness before it became overwhelming, and to turning to Daniel first. Their recommitment to each other wasn't marked by grand gestures, but rather by small daily acts of kindness and understanding. They started spending more time together, not just in the same space, but truly together, sharing thoughts during long walks, cooking meals together, and scheduling regular date nights to reconnect, not as just roommates or co-parents, but as partners and lovers. Each step forward was a step made consciously, with the knowledge that healing was not linear and that there might be days filled with setbacks. But Emma and Daniel had chosen to face those days as a team, equipped with better tools for communication and a deeper understanding of each other's emotional landscapes. As they worked through their issues, both in counselling sessions and at home, Emma learned to articulate her needs without fear of judgment. Daniel learned to listen, really listen, to what Emma was saying without immediately trying to fix the problem. This new dynamic brought them closer, slowly bridging the gap that had formed between them over the years of neglect. This journey of rediscovery also allowed Emma to reflect on the importance of her own independence within the marriage. She started taking up hobbies that she had put aside, finding joy in painting and joining a local book club. These activities didn't just fulfill her, they brought new energies and stories into her life with Daniel, enriching their conversations and broadening their shared experiences. Months into their renewed commitment, Emma and Daniel found that their relationship had fundamentally changed. It was not just about getting back to where they had been before the crisis, but about reaching a new place that was healthier, more resilient, and more deeply rooted in mutual respect and love. Looking back, Emma saw the painful events that had shaken their marriage not just as moments of heartache, but as catalysts for growth. The ordeal had forced them to reevaluate their priorities, their communication styles, and their needs. It had shown them that marriage, like any living, breathing thing, needed care, attention, and, occasionally, serious repair. Feeling hopeful about the future, Emma cherished the lessons learned. She understood now more than ever that love was a complex, sometimes challenging journey that required both partners to contribute actively and wholeheartedly. With this understanding, she felt equipped to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that their foundation was stronger for having been tested. This renewal was not the end of their story, but a new beginning, a second chance at happiness that both Emma and Daniel were determined to make the most of. Each day offered new opportunities to strengthen their bond, to laugh together, to share in each other's joys and burdens, and to continue building a life that was not just bearable, but vibrant and fulfilling.